World War II. Above Germany in the freezing air of December. A B-17 Flying Fortress is lagging behind the main formation after a bombing run. The plane is limping on 2.5 engines after already being attacked by ground flak cannons and a squadron of German fighters. A lone German fighter stalks the damaged bomber like a lion hunting a wounded antelope. What happens next? Find out in this week's episode of Cheeky Tales.
That's called foreboding.
Welcome to this fortnight's Cheeky Tales.
Welcome back, boys.
This episode, I'm your tale teller, John.
Sean loved that.
Don't love tale teller.
And with me, open ears and jokes already, my boy.
Oh, don't put the pressure of jokes already on me.
Yeah, I know. Pressure's on.
As we know, I'm not prepared funny.
And this is episode 69, boy. We've done it.
Nice. We've been waiting 68 episodes
We've
for
gotten
this
to the
day.
joke, so can we finish the podcast now? We've gotten to it.
If you think it's over, it's only just beginning.
Yeah.
Now,
We got to stretch this joke from end to end.
Episode 6,969 is going to be lit.
We'll do that episode naked, shall we? What episode was it? 600
6,660.
there you go.
6,969.
Why
Look
not?
forward to that one.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to spin the other way and just see what happens.
I do have some notes here for banter.
Notes for banter?
I do.
Oh, do you want to pass us the banter script?
No, the first note I got here is speak about Sean's absence.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Sean's not absent.
It's kind of funny that Sean's not here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wonder why that is.
Why would you have not been here, Sean? Why was I thinking
because
that
I
you
just
were...
had a baby.
Yay, congratulations.
A little baby.
Mm.
To Rachel, who's also not listening or watching, but congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations, Daddy Sean.
Trying to think of
Sean hates the term
I hate
daddy.
the term daddy so much.
I'm going to teach his child to call him daddy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, it's not going to happen.
Daddy, may I have some more?
Her name is Cheekelia.
Chiquilia Talia.
I almost just spat my drink all over my laptop.
That would have been an opening.
Mm-hmm. It's Latin for cheeky tales, yeah.
Congratulations, Sean.
Yes,
Thank
congratulations again. Also, is Bree still in the house?
She's outside.
Oh, I wanted to do an Adam Sandler update.
Yeah. We got a new movie coming out, don't we?
We do?
Yeah, he's got that. He's doing a serious movie.
Oh, not again.
I thought that was already... Is
No,
that not out yet?
It's not out yet. I think it's coming on Apple TV.
I actually wanted to speak about Adam Sandler's beginnings.
Is this because you heard that on that new podcast
I
we're
did.
listening to?
I
Yeah,
did.
I noticed. I've been listening to that, and I've noticed how much of your chat has just been directly lifted from that podcast.
I just thought it was very interesting.
Yes, Adam Sandler's next movie. It's called Spaceman.
What was Adam Sandler's first movie, Sean?
Oh, it's first. Jeez.
Well, I don't think it was his first movie, but
I don't think so.
it would have been his breakout movie.
Well,
Should I just say it? Waterboy.
Yeah,
no. His probably breakout movie would be Billy Madison.
Was that before?
Billy Madison was his first one. It was before Happy Gilmore.
There you go.
So he had Going Overboard, Shakes the Clown, Coneheads, which wasn't very good, and he wasn't a main sort of role in it anyway. Airheads, which he was in as sort of as an ensemble cast because they had Brendan Fraser and Steve Buscemi in it. Mixed Nuts, which is
Buscemi?
Yeah.
Buscemi or whatever.
Washimi?
Steve
Steve Wasabi.
Yeah.
Someone's coming up with a plan in the room. Who's it? I think it's Steve Buscemi.
95 Billy Madison.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
Yeah.
I heard
Where was Waterboy in that?
Hey, Waterboy is 3 years later, man.
Well, as Aaron said, I heard this on another podcast, and it's an interesting theory that Adam Sandler owes his fame to Star Wars. Have you heard that, Sean?
Stairway.
Why does he owe his fame to Star Wars?
Right.
Stairway.
So, obviously, the original trilogy came out in the late 70s, early 80s.
We're not going to discuss it again. We're just going to mention that it exists. Every time the Star Wars trilogy comes up, Sean and I get into an argument.
Oh, okay. So that came out in the late 70s, early 80s.
Correct.
And then there was no Star Wars until Phantom Menace,
Correct.
which was
1999.
correct. The trailer for Phantom Menace
Yes.
was played before Waterboy. So the theory is that a lot of the Waterboy's ticket sales were Star Wars fans going just to watch the trailer and then leaving the movie. And so Adam Sandler became a huge name out of Waterboy, a bankable actor, as you might say, because of the Star Wars fans just going to watch the trailer over and over again.
My immediate and extremely educated rebuttal to that is before Waterboy came out, so had The Wedding Singer, Happy Gilmore, and Billy Madison.
The Wedding Singer was before that?
Yes. So 3 huge movies, very quotable, and it had all come out before Waterboy had come out.
Well, there are statistics.
You know, he was a massive star beforehand.
Yeah,
He owes his career to Star Wars.
Owes his career to Star Wars.
Okay.
Happy Gilmore
But there are
was friggin'
statistics.
huge.
There are statistics saying that the Waterboy's ticketing sales were pumped up by Star Wars fans.
Okay.
And that's going to sound weird in this day and age, but you got to remember this is before like proper streaming online, and you had to have quick
you couldn't
time
watch
to look at.
you couldn't watch the
You couldn't watch any trailers. at
trailer.
home.
Yeah, you only got it at the cinemas, and that's fine. But yeah, no, you couldn't possibly stand on that.
Okay, for now, I was
It's
just,
not even half a leg. It's not even a chopstick.
again, I said it was a theory. It
not
was
even
just
a
something to speak about. And yeah. And what about the other?
Billy Madison, his debut film, made $26.5 million worldwide and debuted at number 1 at the box office.
Fair enough. And what about
Rebuttal.
You know what didn't come out of nowhere? World War II.
Correct.
That is an A-grade segue that you can expect from this podcast.
This not at all predictable history podcast about World War II and boats, or both. Boats during World War II Yes.
It is. Well,
and medleys.
there was
Just quickly, I have the most Cheeky Tales episode in development right now.
Really?
I've pivoted because we realized what date our next episode comes out on. But the next episode after that I do is the most Cheeky Tales episode.
Then after that, probably be ready for my debut of Ball
Correct.
Sports season.
It is
episode.
the episode after the next one. The Valentine's Day special. Get your honey and watch it together.
Yes.
Um,
and then Ball Sports season.
then it's
starting.
time for the
It's
kickies.
time for
I did message Aaron during the week, like thinking again you were not going to be here. I'm thinking about doing this. Should I do it while Sean's present or not while Sean's present? And he said, wait until you were present.
Okay.
But I already started this other topic,
That's okay.
which is a World War II boat story. So
Oh, God.
Boats.
might keep it for
Hey, Bree.
Boatvember, eh?
Bree's making her first appearance.
I will say this.
Yeah, you're on
If it's a
camera.
World War II boats one,
She's frozen.
keep it or cut it because this is like
Deer in
future telling.
headlights. You get
Bree's
walking.
showed up in the podcast and it's going to get cut.
That one has to stay in if she's in.
I don't think she'll be in that angle.
Oh, that's
All right.
well. In saying that, this episode is inspired by something that actually comes out today.
Cool.
A TV show that's, when I say comes out today, I mean on recording, so which would be Friday the 26th. And it's from the producers who made Band of Brothers in the Pacific, Masters of the Air, on Apple TV.
I know you're going to poo-poo Apple TV, and I was with you all the way until the most recent time I got it, because my favorite show's on Apple TV. So for 2 months a year, I have to just suck up my pride and pay Apple some money. But
No.
I've been watching a few shows on it. It's good stuff.
I'm not knocking the fact that Apple TV is going to have good stuff on it. I'm just sick of there being another damn streaming
Oh, yeah.
service.
Oh, yeah, we're back to like
100%.
pre-cable days.
Like, I'm paying the same amount as I'd be paying for Foxtel. Like, I'm currently paying for Paramount Plus because I really want to watch the reboot of Frasier
Mm-hmm.
because it's great. It's okay. It's good. It's nice. It's good.
I'll be paying for Paramount Plus very soon because Halo Season 2 is coming out.
Anyway, World War II.
Anyway,
and
World War
boats.
II and boats.
Yeah, so punch my microphone.
There he goes again.
So yeah, Apple TV isn't a sponsor,
They should be.
but they could be.
You know, we've said a
Definitely.
lot of great things about Apple TV.
We've said lots of things.
They could be a sponsor and they would get awesome shout outs like the one they're getting right now.
For
So,
free. Shrinking with Jason Segel.
Any
Very good.
sponsor, this is the quality of
My favorite show is For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus.
Is that what it is? Because you haven't actually told me what it was.
I love For All Mankind.
What's it about?
It is, imagine if the Soviets landed on the moon first.
That does sound interesting.
We're now at half an hour and haven't got to it yet.
20 minutes since we started recording.
Masters of the Air on Apple TV. It's a World War II show following the airmen of the 100th Bomb Group.
Sounds good.
And I love Band of Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Such an excellent show. I probably do a full watch through of that series probably once every 2 years. And that could also be a future episode, The Exploits of Easy Company of the 506th. Pretty incredible what they went through. But as we digress, our story is above Germany, the city of Bremen. Bremen is located about 60 kilometers northwest of Berlin. And Bremen was a target because of its military production, which included Atlas Werk, a shipbuilding company, Bremen Vulcan Shipyard, Die Schemag Shipyard, Focke-Wulf
Nothing funny about that.
Aircraft Factory, Korf AG Oil Refinery, and Nordistute Hut AG Steel Mill.
I'm sure that's all perfectly pronounced.
It's
too.
probably not. And one last thing, the Valentine submarine pen. So there's, and that was a shelter for building U-boats. So there's quite a few assets for the German Wehrmacht. Initially in 1940, the Royal Air Force, or the RAF, conducted raids targeting just these industrial assets. However, this effort proved costly, and as navigation and target location information was difficult to come by, the bombings were impractical and ineffective. In 1942, the bombing strategy changed to nighttime area bombing. What were you going to say? It changed from what? Dropping bombs to...
No, I almost sneezed and I was fighting so hard there not to.
It sounded like a scoff.
No, it was just, I was about to sneeze. I'm like...
So yeah, it changed from the strategic bombing, like targeted bombing, to area bombing. Pretty much they would just send out a bunch of bombers over the area and carpet bomb it.
America. I know it's not America doing it, but...
It was. Oh. It was America and England together.
America.
This would weaken the area's air defences, and in 1943, the targeted day bombings would return. In searching this up, I did do a little bit of looking into other...
Research?
Yes. Into other bombings during World War II. And Cologne seemed to have copped the heaviest
bombing
in like Europe. And it was something like over 1,000 bombers were sent, and it was like a 600 acre area of the city that was destroyed. And I saw a picture of it. The city is just absolutely...
It is wild how
destroyed.
Much of Europe just got wrecked.
Yeah. And then you look at a current day photo of Cologne and you wouldn't know. But like it was like just frames of buildings left. And I believe they rebuilt it pretty much how it was, because there's like a predominant cathedral with a bridge and it looks exactly the same. Like it's just crazy. However, Bremen, its heaviest air raid of the entire war, happened on the night of August 18th, 19th, 1944, where in just 34 minutes, 274 aircraft dropped 1,120 tons of bomb over the densely built-up western area of the city, killing 1,000.
That's a lot of bomb.
Killing 1,060 people and destroying 8,200 residential buildings.
So almost every ton of bomb killed someone.
Correct. Which doesn't seem very efficient, but...
Well, I mean, it's carpet bombing, right? Like, you're bombing everything. Do we want to describe what carpet bombing is as opposed to...
Go ahead. You can do that while I have a drink.
So targeted bombing is you're going after a specific target. So you're actually aiming for something. Like, I want to hit that railway. I want to hit that bridge. Carpet bombing is like, we're going to drop bombs over this entire swath of the city, and that's okay. And so they just blow everything up within a region.
Yep. The last air raid that hit the city was on April 22nd, 1945. And after that, the British 3rd Infantry entered the city in late April 1945. So in about 5 years, the Allies carried out 173 air raids dropping 5,500 tons of explosives, killing more than 4,000 residents, and as well as the city centre, almost 65,000 houses or apartments were destroyed.
Wow.
Which worked out to be about 62% of the city's residential accommodation.
Can you just imagine if over like the course of a few weeks, 65% of houses were gone?
5 years, yeah. But
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's still a lot.
Mm.
So yeah,
Crazy.
There was a lot of people left without homes.
Where did they all go?
I don't know if neighbouring towns are able to take them or massive
they must
shelters.
have, right?
Or you just crammed in with people who had houses still standing. I don't know. Again, this is like one of the impacts of war you don't really think about. You think about the people fighting on the front lines, but these people just lived in an industrial city and they were displaced like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Yeah.
People just lived there.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, it is wild to think about that.
So one of these raids, one of the 173, happened on December 20, 1943, and it saw 546 heavy bombers made up of B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators attack the city. The B-17 is the bomber we're talking about. It is a 4-engined heavy bomber.
Okay.
If you imagine, picture yourself looking at a photo of a bomber. So if you would imagine a 4-engine bomber from World War II, this is probably the plane you think of.
Like that kind of cigar-shaped body.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was manufactured by Boeing.
Boeing?
Well, who haven't exactly had the greatest time in the last couple of months.
Years, mate.
Years, yeah. Max 8 have been having some problems.
Yeah.
And its first flight was in 1935 and it was introduced into service in 1938, with the last plane retired in 1968 by the Brazilian Air Force.
Wow. That's a long career for a bomber, right? I guess the B-52 is still going. And it was around in World War II?
No.
Was it? No, it was afterwards, yeah.
I think it was like Vietnam.
The B-52 Stratofortress, an American long-range subsonic jet-powered strategic bomber, was designed and built by Boeing, which has continued to provide support and upgrades. Operated by the US Air Force since the 1950s. The bomber can carry up to 70,000 pounds or 32,000 kilograms in the Queen's English of weapons and has a typical combat range of around 8,800 miles or 14,200 kilometers, once again in normal people units of measurement, without any aerial or air-to-air refueling. Beginning with a successful contract bid in 1946, the B-52's design evolved from a straight-wing aircraft powered by 6 turboprop engines, that's propeller engines, to the final prototype YB-52 with 8 turbojet engines and swept-back wings. It took its maiden flight in 1952.
I feel like the B-52 replaced the B-17 as the standard heavy bomber. Long range
I
heavy
think there
bomber.
was a couple in the middle, but the B-52 is a plane that you think of when you think of a bomber.
Yeah.
You know that at one point during the Cold War, at all times, there were multiple B-52s flying around the Arctic Circle. It was like more than a year at all times.
Just
there was a
ready to
B-52 always flying.
perform an attack.
Yeah.
Did they have nukes on board?
Yeah. So
Scary.
many stories of B-52s crashing and they're like, there's a nuke missing.
Oh, jeez.
But where is it?
So, yeah, overall,
What I was reading about, though, which is quite funny, is the unofficial nickname for the Stratofortress, which no one uses. They call it the Buff, which is an acronym which stands for
Big, ugly.
Big, ugly, fat or fella. Big, ugly,
you could have
fat
said that so I don't have to
fella.
bleep.
BF,
Yeah, but that wasn't in. It's in order of how it was written.
BFG.
BFG, big ganglia.
Gun. Oh. So, overall,
Cut it, please.
You just like, I think I found the thumbnail.
No, thank you. Cheeky Tail says no,
Overall,
thank you.
overall, there were 12,731 B-17s produced between 1936 and 1945.
Okay.
That's a lot of planes.
Some of the scale of how they built stuff during the World Wars is incomprehensible today. Yeah.
Some quick stats on the aircraft.
Quick stats.
Quick stats.
Length of 22.6 metres, wingspan of 31.6 metres, and a height of 5.8 metres.
Wow.
Empty, the aircraft would weigh 16,400 kilos and with a max takeoff weight of 29,700 kilos. They were powered by 4 Wright Cyclone turbocharged radial engines, which would generate 12,000 horsepower each, and with each engine having a 3-blade prop.
Okay.
So
12,000 horsepower.
each.
Sheesh.
So radial means the cylinders operate in a circular motion, much like a RX-7.
Where a regular car, well, no, that's a rotor.
That's a rotor.
Yeah, they
It's
operate
not
in a circular motion,
It's
don't
not,
they?
Yeah, but it's a rotor,
It's a
not a-
rotary. It's not a circular.
A radial engine is like a regular engine's a V, right? Or
Oh,
a
is that just
boxer.
the pistons are in a circle?
The pistons,
pistons
are in a circle. Yeah.
Okay.
The
It's
pistons are in a circle. Looks like
how many cylinders was it?
It didn't say.
It's usually the B-17's engines. Sorry. By the way, the B-52 replaced the B-36 Peacemaker, which I believe was the one
Peacemaker.
which was the plane that replaced the B-17.
The joke was going to be it's an O12 or whatever instead of a V12.
Yeah.
So we can move on.
B-17's engine.
Cyclone. Right, Cyclone. I did have the actual model number, but I thought that was too boring. They had a max speed of 462 kilometres an hour and a cruising speed of 293 kilometres an hour.
That's a quick boy.
The operational range with a load of 2,700 kilograms of bombs was 3,200 kilometres and a max range of 6,000 kilometres. They could also operate to a maximum ceiling of 35,000 feet.
Or 10,850 meters
Correct.
in humans.
Yeah, but nobody does plane height flying in meters.
And that's why I kept it in feet.
International standard is feet, which is dumb.
Sorry, Sean. I know. I agree with you, Sean. But I also agree with Aaron when you're talking height.
Yeah,
For
when you're talking
altitude,
planes,
it's
it's feet. Yeah.
Guns,
Got them right here, baby.
not these ones. It consists
Not
of
these ones either.
13 50-inch caliber M2 Browning machine guns. 13, 1-3, not 3-0. In 9 different positions.
Is the B-17 the one that had the gunner's nest underneath where
Yes.
they were like
Yeah,
hanging in that super weird position?
Yep,
Had a few of them.
we've discussed it before.
Mm.
So it had 2 in the chin turret, which is the front of the plane, 1 in each cheek turret, and 2 in the midsection or waist turrets. 2 guns in the top ball turret, 2 in the belly ball turret, and 2 in the tail. Go
Nothing funny about that.
on. Okay. And the last machine gun was in the radio compartment behind the bomb bay doors, firing up. So
Right.
I guess it's like in the middle of the plane, firing up through
Yeah.
the top. As for bombs, short range missions, it could carry 3,600 kilograms of bombs, and long range would carry 2,000 kilos of bombs. And for crew, there would be 10 on board. So we're going to have a look at the crew of Ye Olde Pub, which is the name of the bomber in this story, and we'll go over their positions. Their nicknames or call signs are in the middle, just to be clear that this is not their middle name. So the pilot was Second Lieutenant Charles Charlie Brown.
Okay.
Co-pilot was Second Lieutenant Spencer Pinky Luke.
They really stretched for
They
that one.
really worked hard for
Charles Brown.
Charlie.
There's
What do we
what are
call
gonna
this
do?
bloke?
Charlie.
they're not
Oh, yes. Good idea. Brilliant nickname.
they don't really stretch any of these nicknames. Navigator was Albert Doc Sadok. Radio operator and bombardier, Second Lieutenant Andy Andrews. Second Lieutenant Robert Andy Andrews.
Okay.
Top turret gunner and flight engineer was Sergeant Bertrand Frenchy Colombe.
I mean, that one, all right. They've at least gone past, what's his name but shorter?
Well, he's French. That's
I know,
why.
but like they've gone past what's his
Okay.
name but shorter. Instead of calling him Colin,
Yeah.
they called him Frenchie.
Radio operator was Sergeant Richard Dick Perchout.
Mm-hmm.
Tail gunner was Sergeant Hugh Ecky Eckenrode.
Come on, man.
Left waist gunner, Sergeant Lloyd Jennings. Apparently didn't have a nickname. Right waist gunner, Sergeant Alex Russian Ilenskano.
Yelasenko.
Yelasenko, thank you.
It's okay.
And the ball turret gunner was Samuel
Did I say
Blackie Blackford.
Oh, jeez.
It's because his name was Black.
Good roundup, Savo.
Still not great.
So the mission Ye Olde Pub's crew was given was to target the Fokker-Wulf 190 aircraft production facility and were assigned to fly in the Purple Heart corner.
What?
They were assigned to fly in the Purple Heart corner
Of the formation?
of the formation,
Formation, yeah.
which is a spot on the edge of the bomber formation and was considered dangerous as Germans would often target the edges rather than straight through the middle.
Named after the award that American soldiers receive if they are wounded or injured in battle.
There was a section of land, like a land fighting, which was also nicknamed Purple Heart Lane, because I guess how many wounded were.
Mhm.
But 3 bombers had to turn back due to mechanical issues, so Brown was moved to the front of the formation. As we covered earlier, there was quite a bit to the town of Bremen, but it wasn't entirely defenceless. It was guarded by more than 250 flak guns, as well as a squadron of Luftwaffe fighters.
I have to say that Luftwaffe is like one of the best words.
Oh, no, that's why I chucked it in.
Yeah.
Great name. Did you end up
clearly Luftwaffe? It's clearly Luftwaffe.
I believe it's pronounced Luftwaffe.
That's very
Luftwaffe.
English-centric of you, Sean.
Did you end up watching that video on the flak cannons that I sent?
I was doing something else, so
Yeah,
I
fair
loaded it
enough.
up and went, oh, this isn't 2 seconds.
No,
and
it's
didn't
like it
watch
was 12 minutes. I actually found it really interesting. So for people who don't know, the flak cannons are an anti-aircraft gun. There's heavy flak and light flak. So the heavy flak are like your big artillery guns, and they fire timed shells. And they reckon the timing of each shell would be probably 1 second per 10,000 feet. So if a plane was flying at 20,000 feet, they'd set the timer on the shell for 2 seconds. And so it would fire off and then it'd get up. It would travel 2 seconds and then explode in the air.
Yeah.
The light flak is just like a gun that would shoot and the round would explode on impact. If you've watched any war movies with planes, you would have seen flak. It's those black clouds that puff that go off next to the planes. It was quite effective in its job. And the video I sent you goes through like the different ways to use flak, where it's like leading the target and shooting constantly at it as it flies, or with the battery of guns and a collection of guns, they would fire at one spot. So then they would all explode at once around the plane. And then like 30 seconds later, another one, whereas obviously the one before was continuous. It's always going off. And then when they couldn't predict where the planes were flying, they would do what they called a barrage, which they'd get all the cannons in the area to fire one section of sky where they would think they were going to bomb. So you'd just have to fly through this minefield in the air, I guess.
Hilariously, and almost so, start again, frog in my throat. Interestingly, the term flak, or for an anti-aircraft gun, is an English colloquialism that we've applied to all surface-to-air anti-aircraft guns. However, it originally is a specific gun, which is the 8.8 centimeter Flak 18, the Flak 36, and then the Flak 37, which is a contraction of the German word.
This will be like Flaken Kachonka Blanca.
Flugabverkenon, or Fliegerverkenon.
Fliverkenon.
Which
What's your Fliverkenon?
Flugabverkenon.
taking down those bombers.
What you doing, Flugen? Are you working on?
Flugabverkenon.
So they were the 88 cannons.
The 8.8 centimeter.
Which were very effective.
Yes.
Also ground artillery.
8 centimeter.
Yeah, 88 mil. So it's twice the size.
That.
It's twice the size. The Australian military and a lot of the British used 40 mil cannons, and the bullet is about that long and about that round.
Yeah.
It's pretty fat. So
about the size of a salami.
So an 88 millimeter would be only a fraction smaller than a light artillery cannon, which is 105 mil, which is about that round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's about the width of a salami,
It's
right?
a fatty.
Like you go down to your deli and
fat
you get
salami,
like
mate.
a bit of salami. No, yeah, like a charcuterie board salami.
Mate,
About that.
it's
about,
a roll of-
about one Yeti's
I'm going to
size.
say it's about one Yeti bottle.
It's a roller Devon.
There you go.
Thank you. It's Roller Devon. Yeti, sponsor us. Actually, don't.
Devon sponsor us.
But yeah, like I was saying, the
Han
Germans
Salami sponsor us.
the Germans not only used it for any aircraft, they were very effective with their artillery cannons as well, which was the same cannon, if I believe.
Yeah.
Modified, but
Like it's the same basic idea. They used to drag them around and shoot them at things.
so yeah.
Yeah, that's the point.
The 10-minute bomb run started at 27,000 feet and an outside temperature of negative 60 degrees.
That's cold.
Yeah, well, I believe it's winter in Germany at this point, and they're
You know what's insane?
27,000 feet in the air.
That NFL game,
Oh, yeah.
that was negative 30 degrees with
Yeah.
wind chill. That's cold.
Very cold.
That was the one where the coach's mustache froze.
Oh, yeah. He had icicles hanging off his mustache.
Still not the coldest game.
I know, right? Crazy.
Some crazy ass wind chill minus 60 degree day, which was yeah.
And that's the last thing about the NFL we need to mention.
So I'm wearing a Cowboys jersey.
I'm still wearing my Bucks pants.
I'm worried about the next season now.
I'm wearing Brisbane Heat. Congratulations, guys. Well done.
A Brisbane
congrats.
team can win something.
Yes.
Year of Brisbane.
For those outside of Australia, last season on the same weekend.
Well, you would have heard it. We did
We
have a
talked
little bit.
about it.
Oh, we did, yeah.
In 2 different episodes.
Well, to remind you, there was like 4 Brisbane teams lost on the same weekend.
Yes.
In grand finals.
Yes.
Lost grand finals, yeah.
It was nearly Brisbane's longest weekend, as I called it, because it conveniently was also a long weekend. Moving on.
So before Brown could release his load
No. John.
of bombs, what are you talking about?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Two flak
Yeah,
bursts.
what's funny about that?
Yeah. Well,
If you thought that was funny, explain it to us in the comments.
Yes, and how it pertains to the number 69.
why couldn't you get through that, boy? Well,
I'm just imagining our comments being full of like,
that's why I chucked it in, Sean. Episode
can't-
69.
Yeah.
Nice.
Talking about loads in episode 16.
episode.
That's
So before that could happen, 2 flak bursts shattered the plexiglass nose and knocked out engine 2 and damaged engine 4, which had to be throttled back to stop it from overspeeding. This damage slowed down Ye Olde Pub, and it was unable to keep up with the formation and fell back as a straggler. Like sharks sensing blood in the water, the German fighters attacked the crippled bomber. Over a dozen fighters consisting of Messerschmitt's Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf 109s hammered the plane.
You get so many words wrong, and you nailed Messerschmitt.
on the first try.
So annoying.
Sean, I grew up as
Watching World War II things.
a World War II buff, and
Yeah.
John grew up in World War II.
and I made World War II plane models.
I also
and I
did
had a
too.
Messerschmitt plane model, so that's how
I
I
know,
knew how
but
to.
there's so many words.
I know. And so, and they causing a lot of damage to aircraft and crew. The number 3 engine was damaged, reducing it to half power. This actually left the B-17 with only about 40% of its total engine power. Internal systems such as oxygen, hydraulic, electrical, and the radio were damaged, and the bomber lost half of its rudder on the port side elevator, as well as the nose cone.
And the portside elevator?
No, the actual part that moves up and down
Yeah.
lost half of that.
Yeah, but not the rudder, because that's the up bit.
Yeah, it lost half of its rudder and its port elevator.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I misread that then. Yeah, so it lost half of it, and it's completely lost the port rudder. So the back little wing, left-hand side, gone. The tail was shredded, as well as large holes along the fuselage of the craft with internal pieces hanging out and flapping in the slipstream. Most of the bomber's machine guns were jammed, likely due to the loss of onboard systems, and the only guns remaining were the 2 in the top turret and 1 of the forward-facing nose guns. Brown was also wounded and blacked out due to pain and blood loss. This
Sorry,
caused
was that Charlie Brown?
Charlie Brown.
Right.
This caused the bomber to invert and spiral towards the ground.
Oh.
This action made the German fighters back off, thinking the plane was crashing. Brown would regain consciousness and wrangle the bomber back under control, but at this point they were low and only about 1,000 feet above the ground and not able to climb any higher. Wounded on board, as I said. Brown was hit in the right shoulder. What was the Russian fella's name again? Yezlenko? Yes.
Yelasenko
was critically wounded in the leg by shrapnel. Blackford's feet were frozen due to heating wires in his uniform being shorted out, which I didn't know was a thing. Apparently, the uniforms were heated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'd be.
Oh, they would have had to be, yeah.
Oh,
Petchout had been hit in the eye by a cannon shell.
Oh,
And Eckenrode in the tail gun, the only death of the crew, he was decapitated by a direct hit from a cannon shell.
oh, oh.
Mm-hmm.
First aid was complicated by the morphine syrettes freezing.
Oh, no.
The thought of bailing out was also considered, but Yelasenko wouldn't be able to make a safe landing with his injury, so the crew decided to try and limp the bomber home. Brown had inadvertently flown close to a German airfield, and sitting in his Messerschmitt Bf-109 was German ace Franz Stigler. Franz? What did I say, France?
You said Fran.
It would be Franz.
Franz, yes.
Franz Stigler. He was getting his fighter rearmed and refueled when the crippled Ye Olde Pub was spotted. Even with a 50 caliber round lodged in the fighter's radiator, he took off in pursuit of the bomber. So, yeah, he had copped a round and obviously with risk of engine overheating, he took off anyway. As he closed in on the bomber, he could see through the openings in the aircraft frame the wounded and incapacitated crew. Instead of opening fire and claiming an easy kill, which he already had 27 victories to his name, he remembered the words of one of his commanding officers from his time in North Africa. If I ever see or hear you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself. Stigler, in later life, would comment, to me, it was just like they were in a parachute. I saw them and I couldn't shoot them down.
You forget that these people are human, right? Like you hear so many stories of all the death and destruction. It's nice to remember that they're all human, right? Like they're not some concept of war. They're people.
And again, they were on both sides.
Yeah.
They were trained to think of the enemy as not human. I don't know if you can speak to that, Sean. Being like not indoctrinated, but to have the mentality of when you go to war, you can't think of the enemy as
humans. They
humans.
teach that a lot. You talk about the enemy, you don't call them enemy, you call them combatants.
Yeah.
Because if they're not a combatant, then they're not an enemy.
Yeah.
If they're a combatant, they're a combatant. So if it's just simply, are they an aggressor to you? If so, pew.
Yeah.
If they're not an aggressor at no stage, then if at any point they're not an aggressor, then they're not an aggressor. Yeah. It's a matter of, are they currently a capable combatant or are they not? It's really, really like it's like both humanizing and also the opposite of humanizing. It's almost like
it's humanizing until it's not.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, right? It's humanizing them by introducing the concept of non-combatant because it's treating them as a human, but at the same time, it's very, 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 by that point, it's very clinical. It's like there are these factors that make them a combatant. After that, they're not, i.e. they're trying to fly their plane home. They're not a combatant.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier, Band of Brothers, there's an episode that kind of deals with it. One of the guys, he's scared. And he ends up shooting a German soldier and then goes to track him down and then finds that he had this flower pinned on his shirt. And it's like, oh, he's like one of the special guys it's said to climb to the top of this mountain to retrieve this flower. And then then the guy starts struggling with what he's there to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So through mouthing words and hand gestures, Stigler would try multiple times to get the bomber and the crew to land at a German airfield and surrender. After failing, he would try then to divert them towards neutral Sweden, where he knew the crew could receive medical treatment but would be incarcerated for the remainder of the war. Brown and the crew didn't understand what Stigler was trying to say, so instead flew on. Stigler would
what do you think that German's trying to tell us?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just keep going.
Well, it'd probably be very intense. You got this German fighter flying next to you.
Yeah, just hovering there.
You cannot maneuver or anything. A sneeze is going to take this bomber down. So they would fly on. Stigler would then move his plane in close to the bomber's wing so that the German anti-aircraft wouldn't fire upon them. and he would then continue the flying formation with the B-17 until it crossed the coast and reached open water. So I was not obviously flying behind them would indicate that he was
About to
shoot them down. So instead, he flew in close formation next to the wing. So then other German air defense wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't shoot for chance of shooting him down.
Correct. Still unsure of Stigler's intentions, Brown ordered the top gunner to aim at the fighter but not fire, just to warn him off. Understanding the message and happy the bomber was out of German airspace, the German pilot looked back at him, raised a gloved hand in salute, and then swung his aircraft away back towards the east. The old pub made the 400-kilometre trek across the North Sea and landed at RAF Seething. And at the post-flight debriefing, Brown told his commanding officers about the incident. He was told not to repeat this to anyone, fearing other damaged bombers would hold their fire at incoming fighters hoping to be rescued, only to be shot down.
Mm.
And again, there was a quote, I don't know if you can see it there, Sean, about saying, about humanising. They can't let the image of what you say, there's another human.
Yeah.
Brown commented, someone decided you can't be human and be flying a German cockpit.
There you go.
Yeah.
Stigler also didn't mention the incident to his superiors, knowing that a German pilot who spared the enemy during combat would be court-martialed. This is not the end of our story, though. In
Come on, tell me they met each other.
1986, now retired Lieutenant Colonel Brown was asked to speak at a combat pilot reunion called Gathering of the Eagles, and he was asked if he had any memorable missions during the war. Pausing, he then recounted the tale of the Bf-109 pilot who escorted him and saluted them leaving Germany. Afterwards, Brown decided he would track down the unknown pilot.
I thought for sure you're going to be like, and
he
the
was
guy
in.
was like, that was me.
That was me. For 4 years, Brown searched records from the US Army Air Force, US Air Force, and West German Air Force, to no avail. Brown then wrote a letter to a Combat Pilot Association newsletter and a few months later received a letter from Stigler, who was now living in Canada. The two spoke on the phone and Stigler was able to describe the bomber's condition, the escort, and the salute, which confirmed to Brown he was the German pilot. They were astonished to discover they were living less than 320 kilometres from each other for most of the entire time since the end of the war, as Stigler had settled in Vancouver and Brown was in Seattle, Washington. The two became close friends between 1990 and 2008, often visiting each other and sharing their story with other veteran flyers, until, like I said, 2008, when both men died within months of each other.
Wow.
So they did meet and they did become very close friends.
This man could have killed.
That would have been the American.
Yeah, I mean, the bomber could have shot him.
Yeah, true. A few legacy moments. In 1993, Stigler was presented the Star of Peace by the Combatants Federation of Europe in recognition of his actions. 2008, by request of Brown, the crew of Ye Olde Pub were awarded the Silver Star Medal, and Brown himself was awarded the Air Force Cross, which is the second highest decoration in the US Air Force.
Sorry, at his request.
He requested the crew, other
He
crew,
awarded the Silver
I
Star.
thought you were saying like, I think we deserve a medal.
he requested that his crew receive the medal.
Yeah,
and
I
then
get you now.
upon that, he will also receive.
Gallantry decorations are actually all decorations that are individual in nature, need to be
It's a superior
assessed.
has to.
has to put them up.
Yeah.
That could be anybody. Like could be
I
anything.
think we covered this.
Yeah, we covered it a little while
the
ago
medley, didn't
in the
we?
medley
Yeah.
episode. Yeah.
Sean, do you happen to be connected to the speaker?
No.
You might be able to edit this in, but I want you to get something ready for us to listen to. 2014, Swedish
Oh no, okay.
Swedish heavy metal band Sabaton wrote a song for their Heroes album titled "No Bullets Fly," based on these events.
Right. We're not going to be able to put this in the episode.
We can get 10 seconds of that fading out, can't we?
Sure.
And lastly, in January 2019, a surviving B-17 at Ericsson Aircraft Collection was repainted as Ye Olde Pub and is now flown in air shows and historic flight experiences.
That's cool.
And that is the story of compassion and mercy out of one of human history's darkest moments.
World War II has stories like that are just so heartwarming in the middle of awfulness.
Even World War One.
Yeah.
Yeah, in humans' darkest moments, I guess
Yeah.
the light shines brightest. But
What type of bomber was it that was in that Wings over Dallas thing last year? Was that a B-17?
that could have been a B-17.
Most likely.
Yeah. I think it might have been a B-20 something. Anyway.
Oh, the wings.
Wings over Dallas.
Wings over
The
Crash.
Dallas Air Show collision.
Yeah.
The destruction of the two aircraft immediately after colliding. Yeah, it was a B-17 and a Bell P-63.
There you go. People have probably seen that B-17.
Yeah, so there you go. That's the one
Yeah.
that was...
Mm.
There's not that many left flying in the world, I don't believe.
No, that was like most of the comments I saw were like, oh, that's awful. And also that plane, geez.
So, yeah, just a man's compassion. He said... There was another quote saying that they would just like someone in a parachute. They were out of the fight, just trying to get home.
Yeah,
So-
they're not going to be going and bombing anyone.
No.
Like, yeah.
But yeah, there's just, I believe the bombing of Cologne had over 1,000 aircraft involved, like 1,000 bombers, which I can't imagine looking up now and seeing. I think we covered this when we spoke about Pearl Harbor, the amount of planes in the air, just it's unfathomable.
When I see the roulettes, that's weird. And that's like, what, 7 planes?
It's like one little wing of a squadron.
Yeah. 5?
I believe it's 5. Yeah,
Yeah.
1,000 bombers
Yeah.
was conducted on Cologne, over Cologne on the night of the 30th and 31st of May 1942. Codenamed, very poetically, Operation Millennium.
So yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's our episode. You said it earlier. We got a Valentine special coming up next episode because
We
it is
do.
on. It's
The day before.
Day after or day
It's the
before?
13th.
Yeah, okay. Oh, is this No Bullets Fly?
All right. Well, I guess I'll do the wrap up over this.
Wrap us up, boy.
You can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram
Thanks.
at Cheeky Tales Pod. We will post some supplemental images of this episode so you can see what a plane looks like. You have been wonderful as an audience. You're very quiet, very respectful.
No, you're breathtaking.
That is Sean Turnock. That is John Savage. I'm Aaron Payne. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Good night, Chiquitos.
Fly safe.
Ooh.
That's good. Keep that.
What? Permanently? Fly safe.
That's all you're ever saying. All right. I
Can't hear anything?
No, that's not what I was about to say. God damn, everything was recording for that too. All right.
It's going to be at the end. A little bit.
That's a little bit. No. Cut it.
That gets cut.
That gets cut. That's disgusting.
Okay.
That goes to John's personal folder on his computer.
John's vault. Goes into John's vault. You right, Sean?
Holy crap, what was that?
What did you just knock over? What is that?
I don't know, but I'm so glad him jumping is recorded because he jumped a mile.
I actually shit my pants. I got streakies in my undies.